In an ever-evolving digital landscape, for your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. Today, we're going to dig into how we can use AI for intelligence around customers. We'll also talk a little bit about adoption rates and what's holding small businesses and solopreneurs back from leveraging AI, and how we can find new tools and implement them in the most cost-effective way. My guest today is Courtney Baker, and she is a podcast host of AI Knowhow and also a very experienced marketer and CRO. So, Courtney, I'm really excited to have a conversation with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's two of my favorite things to talk about. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Well, let's talk a little bit about your history and kind of where the world was when you started in marketing and how much it's changed over the course of your career.
I was just talking yesterday. I was having a conversation with someone in Canada who was from China, and we were just having a great conversation. And I was like, I love this age where on a daily basis, I'm literally talking to people from around the world, doing work with and experiencing all these different cultures, and wouldn't have never dreamed 10 years ago that that's what my day-to-day working interactions would look like. It is just, it's kind of mind-boggling how different it is even pre-2020. It's really 5 years ago. It's completely changed.
Yeah, for sure. I think also just the impact of having a podcast, right, is also dramatic. And I think, why don't you talk a little bit about that, about from your perspective, the value of the podcast to your company and to your professional status? Just talk about that.
It's a great question. So when we started Knownwell, 2 years ago, we got our founding team together and started kind of dreaming up what Knownwell would be. We knew from the very beginning that a podcast was going to be a part of it. That thought leadership was going to be really important because we knew that whatever we decided to create, it was going to be something people had never experienced before. Right. And that there would have to be a market made for these new types of technologies. Sure. And so before we ever knew what the product was going to be, we started AI Knowhow to talk about how executives could start to leverage AI in their businesses. Because at the time, especially when we started that podcast, it was really a lot of technologists talking about the technology. Right. And it was harder for some of us non-technologists to get our heads around, how do we translate this into being able to do that's a pretty big step. And we saw the opportunity to kind of sit in the middle of that step. And thankfully, it worked out really well, has been a great avenue as we have launched our commercial intelligence platform for professional service firms. It's really been a really perfect foundation. I don't know that it's the traditional startup route, but that was the route we did, and we're very grateful for it.
Well, I love it. I love, too, that it's kind of an evergreen show title, right? You've got a nice bandwidth for being able to run with that for a long time. Now, I know you talked a little bit about thought leadership, but are you also doing some prospecting by interview on the show as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's always finding those people that you're interested in talking to, but also interested in making sure that they hear about Knownwell and what you're doing. So yes, certainly we've thought strategically about the right kind of guests. And honestly, a lot of times it lines up, the people we want listening to our show and the people that we're selling to are the same people. And so it works out really well. That strategy has continued to be really fruitful.
Yeah, that's cool. One of the recent things I saw was that people are liking the solo episodes and requesting more solo episodes and less of this type of interview episode.
Yeah.
So I wonder what your thoughts are on the monologue episodes and how you would pick topics for that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So our show is kind of a hybrid show, but we very strategically went into it knowing, hey, we want to be bringing people in, but we also know there are a ton of interview shows. And
Yeah,
we wanted it to be thought leadership about, um, like what we were thinking as well, not just bringing in outside host. We decided to kind of marry the two. And our show is admittedly probably more produced than most shows.
sure.
And
Yep.
that's really the route that we went to kind of bridge that gap. But I would say, as far as like picking a topic, um, what I normally do is we actually built a thought leadership platform of what are the things that are most important for our buyer. What are they struggling? What are the pains? What's our point of view on those things? And
Right.
so really getting it in front of our team and being like, okay, let's solve, if this is the pain, how would we solve it? And then it makes it really easy to come up with a episode that is more that monologue, delivering, teaching, or education on a certain point of view.
Yeah, I love the sophistication of that, of really being focused on the customer or on the prospect and their pain points versus what your platform does, right? And I
Yeah.
think it's tough, especially in that situation where you're in the founder or startup role, and you get really excited about, oh, we've just got this new thing that we could do, or we could call on this new, uh, GPT or whatever the thing is, right? And it's like, well, does that really impact the customer or the prospect?
Exactly. It is so hard. I'm so glad you said that, because even those of us that we know we can't do that. It's
Yeah.
it's an easy thing to slide into. And
Yeah.
then you find yourself like, oh, we've kind of all of a sudden we're talking about us way too much. And we need to refocus.
Well, I am interested to talk a little bit about Knownwell and about kind of the mechanics of it and how you're getting, I guess, sentiment analysis from existing customers. Is that one way to say it?
Yeah. Well, if you think about for professional service firms, they're really kind of at a disadvantage in a lot of ways. If you think about e-commerce and SaaS, they've had all of this transactional data to really derive like what's happening with their customers. For professional service firms, you don't have all of that rich transactional data. What you
Right.
have is rich relationships, but
Yep.
those are very hard to grade or like to figure out with data, like what is happening with my clients. And
I
so,
tell you, I'm the deal. I have, and in 2 hours, I have lunch with one of my clients, and I'm like, oh no, both of the guys who I work with are coming. And you never know, am I getting fired today? Or, or they just didn't have anything going on?
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't matter. We have talked to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of professional service firms over and over again, what they are using to really track the health of their most important relationships
Yeah.
is a spreadsheet with red, yellow, green. And because it's these rich relationships that their, account managers are having to basically say, is this on track or not? It's a very subjective data point.
Sure.
And what we're trying to do, actually, if you think about a small marketing firm, for example, early on, it's really easy. Usually you have somebody on your team that's just intuitively, they kind of really understand customers. They've kind of got their thumb on the pulse of what's happening. They're the one that's like, something was off in that meeting. Like,
Right.
hey, we should have Susie call the executive over there at Ford. They're just good at that. Now,
Yep.
that small marketing firm probably doesn't have Ford. So that was probably a bad example, but you get the
Right.
idea.
Yeah.
But obviously, as you start to scale that professional service firm, that becomes impossible for a human to sit in the middle of all of that relationship, all those conversations, and have their pulse. But
Yeah.
that's really what we are building. So taking in all of their Zoom transcripts, all of their email, their Slack communication, their structured data, and really providing using our Knownwell methodology to really score the health of that commercial relationship.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So not only, yeah, obviously that subjective feedback from their employees, so valuable, so helpful, but having that counterpoint of an objective measurement as well, being able to spot those blind spots. We all hate surprise churn. We don't want surprise churn,
Right.
but being able to mitigate that risk in a way that just comes alongside the human and helps the human do what they can only do, which is being in relationship with other people. So that's what we're doing. We're really excited about it. And yeah, I could talk all day about it.
No, it's an interesting spot to insert the AI into. So then, are you using a specific GPT for this, or what's the back end look like?
Yeah, well, that is a great question. The next call that you need to have is with some of our data scientists, have them on
Yeah,
to dig into all the, there's lots of different ones. Most of our foundation is built on Google, and so that's what we're using for most of it.
yeah, I got you. That's cool. And then who is your what's the size of the client? What's the ICP look like for what you're doing?
Yeah. So mainly mid-market professional service firms. So right there, really at that point, again, how I mentioned earlier about that small marketing firm, they've got to be large enough where they kind of exceed the human capacity to sit in the middle of all of those interactions, where they
Yeah,
need that level of especially from an executive, even if you've got a great red, yellow, green system, you're getting feedback for your team, you feel like you can trust it. It is really hard to like sit and be able to connect all of those subjective inputs and figure out what's happening at a portfolio level.
yeah,
And that's really kind of what we are moving towards, is really providing professional service leaders with the data that they just haven't had to date, where they don't have to lead by gut.
yeah.
And that's what, when you're having to base your decision making on subjective inputs, at the end of the day, that is, you're just having to make your best judgment call from what you have.
And that does create the anxiety that we all have as
Oh,
as business owners for sure.
yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're all about. Business owners, CEOs being able to sleep more at night. So,
Yeah,
yeah, so for our ICP, it is mid-market professional service firms, especially professional service firms that are on the functional side, the technology service firms, the marketing firms that are really an extension of a company's team. They're really delivering assets back into the companies that they serve.
yeah, right. They're really a part of the team, even though they're
Yeah.
external. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. They kinda have that many to many relationship within the 2 organizations. So you get that robust, you get a lot of exhaust from those relationships, and you're able to score, based off that.
That's cool. So then I know that you guys you've got a wait list going, which creates a little bit of feeling of exclusivity, which is a cool thing. What how, besides the podcast and what I would imagine is pretty robust LinkedIn uh, posting, what's the rest of your marketing campaign look like right now?
Yeah, one area that we found, and I would have told you, hopefully most marketers listening to this are like, "Oh, been there." It's the things you don't think will work that actually work, and the things that you think
Yes.
will work that don't work. We've
Yeah.
all been there. LinkedIn ads has been incredibly powerful for us, and I don't know if it's this moment in time, that having an AI native platform is just interesting enough. Over and over again, we're talking to our ICP and the CEO of our ICP over and over again, which has been really incredible. I will take
Yeah.
it. I'm not complaining,
It's
but it's
beautiful.
not necessarily the puzzle piece that I would have said, "Yeah, that's gonna be what's gonna happen."
Right. Yeah, I guess who did you think was gonna be in that conversation with you, a CRO or somebody on the sales
Yeah,
side?
or COO, or, somebody in customer success, client success, that's just felt
Yeah.
the pain of trying to pull those green, yellow, red reports over and over again, and just wants to have more confidence that they don't have that risk. They don't have blind spots that they're not seeing happen.
Yeah.
Or, they're tired of like the siloed nature of the organization. Like the
Right.
communication from sales isn't getting to the team on the ground, and deliveries over here, and, needing something that helps kind of solve those issues. Obviously, I've talked a lot about, surprise churn, but one of the areas that we're really excited about for professional service firms is upsells with existing customers. Because if
Yeah.
you can show that, like, hey, our relationship's in a really good spot and we provide recommendations on growth opportunities. One thing that I've seen over and over again is in these professional service firms, who is responsible for upselling and growing the existing client base? It's kind of a moving map.
Yes.
It's like unknown. And so this is an area like, hey, when you can pinpoint the time that they may be primed for an upsell, it becomes easier to figure out how to leverage the right person at the right time to make that ask.
Yeah, I like that. And it is a moving target, right? Just because there's some clients that get along with some parts of the team,
Yep.
not necessarily even the person who's supposed to be managing that team, right? And
Yeah.
so that sentiment analysis inside of when to upsell. That's and
Well, we
again, yeah,
Well, one thing I was going to mention in our platform, so when you go into a client, you can obviously see the health of the relationship and like how it's transgressing. But beneath the like strengths and weaknesses and all those good things, we have a relationship map. And this was like early on one of those things that, it seemed like a cool thing. Like, oh yeah, that's neat. You can see the health and see these relationships
yeah,
over and over again. It was the thing that CEOs were like, oh wow, this is incredible. I mean, it's like, it's the things that you don't think sometimes are going to be the thing that are, which is, gosh, if this podcast isn't a story about really listening to your customers,
right,
it was
exactly.
the thing that lit them up. And I think this kind of gets to it, is being able to see who does have the best relationship, who has the strongest, or just being able to see, hey, there hasn't been any contact between our main person and their main person in 2 months. Like, what's going on here? Like, there's
Yeah.
something broken.
Yeah, that's interesting. No, I do love that. Nobody is smarter than the marketplace, right? Like that's just one of the
Absolutely.
mantras that you've got to
Yes.
embrace and always have that kind of the humility around letting the clients dictate what's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was just thinking, I was like, maybe that's, it's probably good for us marketers that we continue to have that in our lives.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Well, so then when are you expecting that you're going to go full blown live out of the beta waitlist status?
Yeah. So right now, what we have just released is actually the ability for people to experience their data in our platform. And
Yeah,
so, if you're a company that lines up with the community that we serve, we're now able to get you set up, get you your hands on like what actually the platform can show you, the intelligence it can provide. And so we're really excited to be able to have that. And then continuing to take early access customers as they fit and align with the company. So, but we're really excited for anybody out there that might be interested in seeing their data in the platform.
for sure. Yeah, that's cool. And then on a personal note, what are some of the tools that you're using in your daily or weekly business routine right now that are AI based?
I continue to be blown away with Chat GPT. I know I like hate actually saying this, but literally this week, and this is a personal example. Um, my daughter had created, she's 8 years old. She had created all of these bears with personalities. She'd written a story about each bear, its
No.
characteristics.
Yeah.
I was like, is this a marketer in the making?
Yeah.
So she had each one of these different bears, and we took a picture of the bear and then asked ChatGPT to illustrate it in the style and like provided the story. And she lit up. It was amazing. And it was a personal example that just reminded me hey, I can do this with my designers. Like
Yep.
I should be sketching out things and not sending them my ugly wireframe. I should be
Right.
reading this, telling AI to improve this so that I communicate better with designers
Love it.
or storyboards or, you know, obviously I think I'm a creative. I think sometimes marketers on the strategy side don't get quite enough cred
I
on
agree.
the creative side of things.
Yeah,
Obviously, a big part of our role is communicating and talking with creatives. And I think that's a place where AI can really elevate our ability to communicate well with each other.
I love it. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that really is the a great example of why we need to be integrating AI first, right? Every
absolutely.
project, no matter how small, to get in and use Perplexity or chat and just to iterate with
Yeah.
that the help because it's going to be better than what you do on your own. Even those of us who are very experienced are going to get better work product.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't tell you all the time. I think part of that global workforce now and being, we're working in our homes now. It's a whole new world. And I personally am an external processor. I love to collaborate. I mean, don't we I feel like that's kind of part of the recipe for being a marketer. We love a whiteboard. Get us in
Yeah,
front of the whiteboard. We don't have that anymore. And so over and over again, I use it as a thought partner to just help me kind of come up with the other side of the coin. And it may be like one tiny thing. It may be a
yeah,
phrase. It may
right.
be a singular idea that just elevates my work. And so it's really been amazing. I would encourage, I see all the time executives that still, I worry a little bit about because so much of it is at the execution level and so many of the applications are still at that level
Yeah.
that many times executives just aren't getting enough reps using these technologies. So just really encourage everybody, like you said, even small things, trying to evaluate, is there a tool, is there a platform that I could use to do this better?
Yeah, I love it. Well, Courtney, I really appreciate your time this
Yeah.
morning. If people want to get in touch with you and know more about what Knownwell is doing or what you're doing, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can go to knownwell.com. We're also on LinkedIn. And then our podcast is AI Knowhow.
All right. Well, that is interesting. I've subscribed to that this morning. I'm looking forward to catching up on what you guys are doing. And thanks again for spending some time with
Thank
me.
you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.